Okay, I hope everybody can see the slides here and I'm audible. Maybe somebody in the Zoom chat can confirm that. Welcome everybody to this session about Helix Innovation Suite and our ITSM suite. This is a typical roadmap presentation where I summarize both what we've done over the past few months as well as where we're going, right? What additional things are coming. And as usual, I try to kick it off with a bit of context information. What is our strategy, etc., before we go into the actual capabilities roadmap, so to speak, right? I'm Peter Adams. I lead the product management activity at BMC for our ITSM solution, and again, the underlying converged BMC Helix Innovation Suite platform, as it's called right now, right? And as a reminder, we are now using BMC Helix in general as a brand name, both for SaaS and on-premise. Many of you probably have noticed that. We just felt it's simpler if you use a consistent name. You don't have to always say, this is the same between both worlds, on-prem and SaaS. We really use BMC Helix now, both for the ITSM solution as well as Innovation Suite, but it does include the AR system capabilities. Hopefully many of you had a chance to attend Robert's Curly's session this morning and understand again how the two are connected, but we're definitely committed to continuing moving custom along who had invested in AR system, who had built custom applications. All of that is still possible, as you'll see. Just one logistical item here before we, there's a little bit of an echo. Before we get started, standard legal disclaimer, I do have some slides about the future here. So the typical disclaimer is that everything in the future is subject to change. We try to present this as best as we can from a product management perspective, but sometimes we do have to make adjustments, right? Again, a few quick introductory slides, and I want to start out with a bit of a recap about the past 12 months. We certainly have introduced an enormous amount of innovation, significant new capabilities if you look back over the past 12 months. I mean, I've been with BMC for 13 years now. It's certainly a year when it comes to big, substantial changes that is on par with anything else that I've experienced in these 13 years, right? Both from an architecture perspective, there were some significant changes with the container deployment, with the platform consolidation, but also, specific application capabilities, right? And just an enormous amount of innovation that has rolled out during the course of the 12 months here. When you look at, what are we trying to achieve from a strategy perspective with our ITSM solutions and with our, I should say, service and operations management solution, because as you probably know, from an organizational perspective, we've brought these two areas, IT operations management, IT service management, together into one organization, and we really look at this now as one solution, right? If you look at what are we trying to achieve or trying to help customers with, is that we see just a number of significant changes happening in these traditionally separate areas, right? There's enormous pressure on companies to innovate. That's why Devops and Agile get so much attention. But then in turn, that has an impact on how to do service and operations management, right? How do you deal with daily changes, or sometimes hourly changes for that matter, right? How do you deal with the fact that these product teams have autonomy, at least to some degree, in terms of tooling and the way how they work, etc. So that has quite a bit of an impact on the service management discipline, right? Overall, we see an explosion of data. That's not necessarily a new thing, but clearly something that is continued to increase. We see a lot of changes in the technical environment. A lot of the underlying technologies are now very ephemeral, right? The infrastructure can come and go. Application containers are appearing and disappearing. Much more dynamic environment than it used to be, and a much higher scale very often, right? And any kind of manual process that you have, it tends to be challenged these days, right? Because of the scale challenges, right? And you cannot just throw more people at it, at some point in time, you have to think about automation, right? And then again, last but not least, we see that a lot of organizations are trying to bring service and operations management together, because in the combination of the two areas, you can really achieve optimal outcomes. And again, it's something that we call service ops, where you try to take advantage of both operations as well as service management data and workflows, and just are able to build a better outcome, so to speak, right? Now, all of this is from a technical product portfolio perspective. We've moved on towards building a single BMC Helix platform. Now, that doesn't mean there's a single process that runs, right? This is, in fact, a whole bunch of microservices with a big part of AI/ML in it. We have AI Foundation, which is one of the key set of services that are in there, that are basically used by all the different solutions, right? And we call that now BMC Helix platform, right? We used to have that as a name for just Innovation Suite, but right now it's a much bigger picture here, including common services, APIs, common components like the Helix Dashboard, API access, data ingestion, AI Foundation. Of course, Innovation Suite is part of it as well, right? The app development platform is one of these services in there, but it's not the only one, right? And then on top of that, again, we build different solutions for different areas, whether it's IT, but you can see it covers non-IT areas as well, right? And again, more and more we see use cases where we bring this service management data and insights and the ops data and insights together. And then again, that's what we call service ops, right? Now, on top of that itself, we focus a lot on the employee experience or the customer experience if you use external customers. That continues to be a big focus for us, right? It's just such a essential topic for many companies, right, to build this extremely powerful experience, because that's really the kind of the impression that the internal employees or your customers will get from the services you deliver, right? And so it's extremely important to have a modern, best-in-class, omni-channel strategy here, right? And again, covering both IT and non-IT services here, right? That's really how we think about it from a product portfolio perspective, right? And as I already stated, it's important to note that we are not just covering IT. That's still, even though it's same size bubble as all the other ones, it's still a major domain area for us, no question, right? But we do cover other domain areas as well, right? Marketing, HR, facilities, right? So in case you want to apply, service management best practices, so to speak, to other areas, it is possible. As you know, we are using a dedicated solution for this with BMC Helix Business Workflows, because there are some subtle differences around terminology, around use cases, importance of privacy. There's a number of differences between what you do on the HR side versus IT, right? And that's why we decided to cover this with a separate solution, right? But in the end, both of them are driven or overlaid by digital workplace as the overlying, as the overlay from a customer experience or employee experience perspective, right? Any questions so far in terms of the strategy in general? Makes sense, right? Okay, let me move on then. Again, I said the main portion of the presentation is really about the capabilities, what we've done, as well as the roadmap, and I wanted to structure it in these 4 sections here. So we'll cover the platform piece, we'll cover the user experience part, both on the digital workplace side as well as the agent experience. AI, the use of AI technology to improve service management is a big topic. And then again, we see a key important goal that we have to help companies figure out how they can combine this DevOps and Agile approach with the service management approach so that they get the best outcomes, right? We know that there's a lot of thought about, oh, if I do Agile or DevOps, I don't need service management at all. Our point of view is clearly that the service management capabilities have an enormous value that they can provide to an organization who wants to innovate fast with DevOps, right? So, and again, we want to articulate what that value is, right? But let's get started with the platform itself. So I think most of you have probably heard and noticed that, again, we have decided to bring what used to be two separate application development environments together into a single converged app dev environment, which we now call, again, BMC Helix Innovation Suite. So the traditional AR system based approach, as well as the innovation suite approach that used to be only available in SaaS. Now, again, this converged platform is available both on-prem and SaaS, right? It's the same platform, and you can basically on one instance now run the tools that were delivered for AR system, including custom apps, ITSM, of course, the tools that were built on Innovation Studio, like business workflows, digital workplace. Everything runs on a single instance of the platform, right? So it simplifies the picture quite a bit. Before you had to, if you use multiple products, at least 2-3 different instances, right? It all runs now on one instance, and there's much more, or it's much easier to kind of communicate between the solutions, right? Now this again can run on premise, where the customer says, I want to stay on premise. Our point of view is here, SaaS has advantages we believe, for most customers. And we know that some cannot move right away or cannot move ever. That's fine. It's really up to you to decide the timeline when you make that switch, right? But inherently, SaaS has a lot of benefits financially. You can use the resources that you have for innovation versus the mundane things. So we do believe ultimately that SaaS is the better outcome for most of our customers. But again, we at least offer the flexibility to make that move at the time of the customer's choosing. And when they move, it's fairly easy because it's, again, literally the same platform on both sides. So it's an important part of it, right? Now, again, you see the Innovation Suite is not the only platform service that is in play here, right? That is the piece where all the applications run on. But you can see the single sign-on dashboards. All of that is also part of the considered part of the Helix platform now, and it's used more and more by these applications, right? So that's the key change that we made from an architecture perspective. Now, what that means is, for any ITSM customer who used to only have access to AR system, now those users who have an ITSM license have full access to this low-code, no-code development environment, right? So you can use Innovation Studio. This is a screenshot here for the UI builder here, all web-based modern UI builder with drag and drop. You can use that. You can use the visual process definition. All of that is fully available, right? Now, the ITSM solution is still built on AR system. That doesn't change magically, right? But you can use these additional things either to build new applications, or you can even build extensions to ITSM, right? For example, you can fire off such a process here from AR system workflow fairly easily, right? So you could say, hey, if I get a major incident or something else happens, I just fire off and I kick off such a process here, and then I can define the process itself with the visual editor. Right? You can build extensions. You can even build a UI on top. Again, some of you may have attended Robert's session this morning, who showed how you build an Innovation Studio UI on top of, let's say, foundation data that is built on AR system. Right?
You're enabling customers to innovate faster. Are you enabling independent developers to have access to the SaaS-based system so that we can develop things?
So as you know, first of all, we do have a developer portal. In general, we do want to encourage customers and independent developers to develop solutions as well. Now, with the switch to the container-based approach and the platform consolidation, we kind of had to change a little bit the way how we spin up these developer instances, etc. Some of that is still in work, but we did actually have a lightweight option for people to download Innovation Suite. They could develop it even in-house. They didn't have to connect to a SaaS instance, right? And then, basically test it with on a SaaS instance, right? Again, some of that is no longer possible with a container-based approach, or not so easy anymore. That's why we are looking currently into how to better support developers within, right?
So do you have any? This says due in 2102.
Yeah,
but
the capabilities there, again, how we help
for developers are not yet
fully built out. The infrastructure itself is not fully built out, right? The technology is there. I mean, the conversion and everything has happened. But again, how can we make it easy for developers either to access a SaaS instance or download a lightweight version that is still in work, right? Okay. I mean, over the course of the past 12 months, we did make other enhancements in the platform. For example, in general, all the solutions that were built on this Helix platform, if you recall, we have, for example, a single text search engine now in there, right? And that's Elasticsearch based. So we exchanged the one that we had in AR System and Innovation Suite, the Lucene-based engine, with this new Elasticsearch-based engine, right? And we expect both performance as well as relevancy improvements, right, through this change. And again, it's a consistent microservice that is used by other solutions as well. And not every solution has its own search engine, right? And then, of course, the significant change, other change as well, aside from the convergence of the platforms, is this decision to go with container-based deployments, right? Again, we decided to do this because we want to support on-premise customers, continue to support on-prem customers. But we also know that operating such an environment was always a bit of a challenge, and we wanted to make sure that we have an architecture that works, for the next 5 years, 10 years out, right? And container deployment model is the standard for many organizations these days in the enterprise, right? So from that perspective, we decided to go with that. We do believe it has many, many benefits. We know it's a change. Change is always difficult at times, right? But once you're familiar with it and can use it, there's a lot of benefits in terms of automation, right? Automated deployments, automated patching, automated upgrades, zero downtime upgrades. So there's a lot of benefits in there. Now that itself, of course, you can easily spend a whole hour on that topic alone, but this, again, is meant to provide an overview of what we've done as well as where we're going, right? So we continue to refine this container deployment, by the way, same with platform capabilities. And then just quickly on Helix Dashboards, again, that is a decision. When we looked at this Helix platform approach, again, the general rule is, single microservice for every specific function, not multiple different ways how to do things, right? And so when we looked at the topic of reporting and dashboarding, we decided, we want to go with a single module that covers reporting and dashboarding across all the solutions, right? Operations and service management, all the solutions, right? And so we decided to go with this Grafana-based solution that has a lot of exciting capabilities, but we also know that it's a bit of a change compared to smart reporting. Still, again, if you want to go down a specific vision of providing a single reporting and dashboarding module, eventually we had to make that change, right? Because we couldn't do the proper heavy visualization that you need on the operation side with the smart reporting capabilities, right? So we've built that out over the course of time, both in terms of, over the course of the past 12 months, roughly, since the solution is available. in terms of pre-built reports, in terms of, scheduling reports, exporting new chart types, pre-built content. So by now, as of 21.3, it's quite extensive. The one thing that we're currently working on is, again, migration tools to help customers move from smart reporting to Helix Dashboards. I'm sure many of you see in the email. Again, it reflects that we think customers will have a much better experience with Helix Dashboards, and we want them to move as quickly as possible. And again, right now we're focusing on building the migration tool to help customers change.
So one of the biggest concerns I'm hearing is more depth. You got to export the scheduling still as an enhancement. So, but the graphs are great. It looks like Grafana is really good at doing that. But how's the export capability?
Well, again, export is already there, but multiple formats. Actually, by now we started out with PDF, but now we support multiple ones. Scheduling is there, so we're still building more out. I don't want to hide that on the Helix Dashboard side, but it's a fairly well built out solution by now, right?
So you feel like it's fairly easy replacement for smart IT, for smart reporting?
It's not a.
The social.
There are some differences, no question. In fact, the social one is a good example. Now we have heard, for example, that there are not that many customers are using the social capabilities of smart reporting. So I didn't think that is a big issue. It has a bit different philosophy, smart Helix Dashboards. So it's less of a self-service approach than smart reporting. It was like everybody could basically copy and build their own reports pretty much. We also see in the negative side of that, right? We have customers who have multiple thousand of reports because the report definitions proliferated over time. So there are differences, there's no question. And it's not a one-to-one replacement, to be very clear, right? But again, the experience will be much better with the new module, right?
Do you feel like it will meet the majority of the reporting needs?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So far from what I've seen, we'll actually have the ability to define layouts that we've lost.
That's true. That's true. Again, data sources. So there are many areas that are way better, I would say, in Helix Dashboards. Again, there are also areas when it comes to self-service report definitions that were probably a bit better in smart reporting, right? So there are differences, no question, but there are many, many things that are better, right? Just in terms of how you can tap into lots of data sources and bring that all back into a single dashboard, right? I mean, that was always extremely difficult on the smart reporting side.
So, quick question: you mentioned data sources. Is this going to be able to reach outside of DAO?
Yes. Yes.
That was one of the biggest drawbacks we had with smart reporting.
Yeah. And Grafana has a
replicated databases for reporting, which couldn't reach out.
Yeah.
Because of the licensing.
Yeah, and Grafana has a rich set of modules available, even with that open source versions that we are using, right? Now there is a reporting session tomorrow, I believe, from Rahul, who's in my team covering this module as a PM, and from the technical experts here. So there's more information about this available. I won't, unfortunately, spend too much time on it. And you hear more about this as part of the enablement, right? We'll have webinars, we'll have tools. Again, we are working currently on some tools that help bring the report definitions over. So you'll hear a lot more about this over the next months or two, right? And we are continuing to build out reports for areas that were never there in smart reporting, right? Smart reporting had a fairly good coverage in terms of core ITSM, but not for the other areas like live chat, DWP never had any smart reports, etc. So now that we can tap into everything that is built on top of the Converge platform, right? The smart Helix Dashboards can basically tap into everything that's built on the innovation suite, but as well, again, lots of other data sources, right? And we can more easily implement all these reports for other areas, right? Okay, so let's move on a little bit more towards the application side. In terms of user experience, there's always two areas to look at it, two ways to look at it. One is the employee/customer experience, right? The consumers of services. Here we continue our strategy around omni-channel experiences, right? Offering employees, if I use that term, multiple options how they can interact with the same catalog. Automation is a big topic for us, right? The ability to access it on mobile, anytime, anywhere, and shifting left, right, and automating a lot of things through the chatbot. Those are some of the topics that we continue to pursue here. If I look back at the last 12 months, we did as you may know, we did an acquisition in the knowledge management area, a company called ComAround, that we integrated into our portfolio initially, and again, that's available today already, into the end user experience. So it's integrated already in Digital Workplace and in the chatbot, which is the screenshot that you see here. And the benefits of this new application, knowledge management module is it's really an advanced AI-based, fully KCS certified knowledge module, right? Now, we had a fairly powerful knowledge module in ITSM, or still have it as well. And we continue to maintain that, even enhance it, because again, the ComAround knowledge management solution that is presented here, that's a SaaS-only solution at this point in time. So for on-premise customers, you'll likely have to continue to use the ITSM knowledge piece, right? But again, this one has advanced AI capabilities that really differentiate from, that go beyond what we do on the ITSM knowledge management side, right? Now, in terms of UI, flexibility is a key topic for our customers, and that applies both to the employee experience in Digital Workplace, and for that we have introduced in 21.3 our Helix Digital Workplace Studio. It's a no-code UI configuration environment for building out multiple employee experiences, and again, you can build out multiple ones because maybe each line of business team, each geography, there's always reasons why some organizations want to build their own experience, so to speak, for employees, right? And you can do that with this Digital Workplace Studio without any coding, right? So again, the flexibility on the end user experience side is intentionally done with a no-code drag and drop type of approach, because you want to hand over responsibility to the lines of business organizations, right? They should basically be able to define these experiences themselves, right, without much coding, etc. And that extends into even configuration, for example, how much of the backend activity is visible to the employees, right? So we have now configuration options where you can decide, hey, I want to show all the backend tickets to the employee. What's the ID, who's working on it, all of these things, right? You can expose now in Digital Workplace, but other companies may say, no, I don't want to show all the details. I want to just, show the request and where it is in its execution. So both of that is possible. Again, overall, much more flexibility in terms of how you build the experiences, right? And again, that is done with a full no-code approach, and we have these UI building blocks or content building blocks that just need to be dragged and dropped onto Canvas, and we continue to build that capability out with a few more of these building blocks, right, that we want to let customers use, right? Now, on the IT side, the picture is a little different, right? Usually when it comes to IT user interface, right, the ITSM solution, companies generally want to fiddle with the UI a lot more, want to extend it, etc., right? And again, that's because it is backend IT. Usually, it's not a problem to get corresponding developers or remedy administrators, right? And so, because of that, we decided to, put the UI, the modern UI that, again, most people know under the name Smart IT. We decided to put this back onto the platform using this PWA technology that you see here on the screen, and that basically makes the ticket screens that we support, and we pretty much support all the core ones by now. It makes it fully tailorable and extensible, right? It's in an almost similar way as we do for mid-tier. It's not exactly the same, right? There's some subtle differences, but in the end, you can, imagine you can tailor the screen that you see here almost to the degree that you could tailor a mid-tier screen, right? With the same technologies, overlays, extending it, etc., etc. Right? And while we were converting these classic smart IT screens to the PWA technology on top of the platform, we did implement some enhancements, but the key task was really to make it A, tailorable, and then B, mobile friendly, because eventually, not today, but eventually we want to run this UI on mobile devices as a web UI. Today we have these native apps, as you know, in smart IT. But in the future, we do plan to cover the UI both on mobile and on the standard desktop through the same PWA technology and the same web UI. By the way, the PWA technology also applies to all custom applications, right? It's part of the platform. And so you can build a similar, modern UI on top of any custom AR system build applications, right? That was also a big difference to the smart IT environment, right? Which was really tied only to ITSM. Right? Now, on the UI side, we continue to revise, again, the classic smart IT screens. One thing that we are currently working on is a revised calendar. Again, one reason is the mobile use. The other part is that we wanted to have some functional enhancements in the calendar. So better filtering, easier display of information, large amounts of information on a single day, right? There were some of the challenges that we had with the existing smart IT calendar. And so we are in the process of revising that. And then the other screens that we're now converting into something mobile ready are the ticket console. We know that's a big one, especially around filtering, but also the navigation bar, global search. There's a couple of things that we haven't transitioned over right now. So that you're not surprised, for example, in the ticket console, we actually convert that into an innovation suite UI screen, right? So you may have seen before, PWA is not the only option how to build a modern UI on top of the platform. You can also build a UI based on Innovation Studio. And in the case of the ticket console, we do actually plan to do this because we are working on a single ticket console across all the solutions, not just ITSM, but also business workflows, deals with tickets, right? They're called cases and tasks. We have a new telco solution. I'm not sure whether you've heard, right? Our BMC Helix for communication service providers. They deal with telco trouble tickets. So we wanted to have a single technology that covers all of these ticket consoles with the same look and feel, etc. And that's why we decided, because the other solutions are all built on Innovation Studio, we said the single ticket console will be based on Innovation Studio as well, right? But again, it doesn't change the goal. The goal is a responsive web UI that is tailorable and has better capabilities. And that's ultimately what we are building here. It's just going to be, again, a single shared ticket console across all the BMC Helix solutions, right? Not just ITSM. You can see, the recurring theme. We're trying to avoid duplication, but really build things once and then use it for all the different solution areas, right?
One thing I've struggled with ever since the 2-inch screens became so popular is how do you turn that into a 2-inch screen?
So the mobile view looks different than this. It's not a table, right? You have these stacked cards. Actually, the Innovation Suite can do that today already, right? If you look at BWF and the ticket console on a mobile device, it kind of transitions automatically, right? Some people call it not a responsive, but an adaptive UI, in that it completely changes the display, right? But you're right. I mean, there are things that work well on a mobile device. There are things that don't work well. Like even calendar, I would claim, maybe a challenge on a mobile device or a smart recorder, right? It's really designed for a frontline agent. It's unlikely that they use a mobile phone, right? So we're aware that there's some interactions that may actually, we may not invest that much into responsiveness for certain screens, right? Again, the smart recorder is a good example, right? Or the live chat console that we have, right? You may know, right? We have a live chat console for the agents where they can see multiple chats in parallel, and it's unlikely that they would do this on a mobile phone. So we don't focus that much on it, and it may actually not even appear on a mobile device, right? So that chance is there.
I'm not crazy. It's not possible.
No, absolutely.
Well, it's not possible. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, we're tracking the other screens as well. We're also tracking that we still have a couple of gaps around ITSM capability. Some of them will close sooner, like approval console was an example, right? That we hope actually to deliver earlier than next 6 months out. That will likely come even earlier. So there's a process how we continue to roll this out. Again, the goal is to have a single web UI that works on mobile and on desktop, tailorable, extensible, and covering pretty much all the ITSM functionality. That's the goal that we're working towards. Right? But aside from the UI itself, right, there's obviously functional improvements that we build over time. I'll skip through this a bit faster because we had the sessions on major incident management before, but in case somebody couldn't attend the earlier session, right, we invested quite a bit into the general theme of major incident management, right? We built out a complete new interaction as an extension of the incident record. We are kind of exposing AIOps information so that we help users resolve these major incidents faster or take actions faster. And that is information that comes in from the AIOps side, right? We've built out a significant new collaboration interaction in MS Teams. So this is a native MS Teams app with not just text interaction, but you see there's these cards that we built out where you can basically interact with the ITSM system from within MS Teams, right? You can look at an incident, you can update the status, you can, add activity notes. I mean, you cannot do exactly the same as with the ITSM UI. Think of this as a lighter weight version, but the benefit is you can do it within MS Teams. You don't have to, jump back and forth between different UIs, and you could establish a collaboration, whether it's for major incident management or for other reasons, right? You can establish a collaboration. You can bring in people that may not even have access to ITSM, and you can still interact with the ITSM system here. Now, as part of the roadmap, again, when it comes to functional enhancements in the core ITSM area, there is similar to what we've done on chatbot and digital workplace. We are also integrating this ComRound solution into the ITSM UI itself. So it's it's an option. The ITSM knowledge module doesn't go away, but it is an additional option for customers who have licensed this extra advanced Helix knowledge management solution, right? They will have a chance to use that as part of the ITSM interactions, right? So that's something that comes out actually fairly soon in the first version on SaaS. This is planned to be available by end of December, actually. And then we also continue to invest in live chat, right? That continues to be an important topic for us that draws a lot of interest from customers. And we've done a continuous set of enhancements over the past few months and quarters, right? And we continue to build out capabilities, for example, for agents to be able to specify their status in a more fine-grained way. Not just if they're available or unavailable, they should be able to say, hey, I'm on break, I need to do follow-up with the customer. And, as they track in more detail what they do, later on they can improve the reporting on it, right? And in general, we are building out the live chat reporting in Helix Dashboards as part of this next release as well, right? And then on the major incident management side, I mentioned this before as well, there's certain, we've done quite a bit of enhancements, but there's still a few areas that we want to build out, including postmortem reviews, how we can help communicating to stakeholders, right? Usually when you have a major incident, you need to send out updates to the management team, and we want to help companies automate that process, right? Okay, the next topic is AI service management. If you recall, ultimately we are looking at AI technologies as a means to an end to improve the ITSM experience and the outcomes and the productivity, right? We are not so interested in building AI technology on its own, right? We are happy to use external technology. Initially, we focused, as you know, on IBM Watson. We're now moving more and more over to building out our own AI foundation in this Helix platform, if you remember that picture from the beginning. And that means we are using the same AI foundation both on-premise and in SaaS, right? And do this in a way that we control it and are not dependent on an external IBM Watson service, right? So we are slowly but surely moving away from that approach into basically delivering our own AI foundation. Again, we are not building the algorithms themselves. Typically there's open source technology out there, OEMing technology, but the technology would be delivered by BMC and can be deployed on-prem as well. Right?
So are you saying that the actual all the machine learning and stuff like that could occur on-prem?
Eventually, yes, right. So we do actually, the first release for AI on-premise in ITSM is this upcoming release that we have in about 2 weeks it's called 21.3.01. It's an on-prem release, and it's the first time that we have this clustering technology that I'll talk about in a second. That's the first AI capability that we'll have on-prem for ITSM, right? And the classification algorithm that we use, this is basically what I show here on the slide. That is also expected to be eventually available on-prem as well, but that will take roughly 6 months or so. So what I show here is something that we had developed quite a while ago, about 2-3 years ago. Just as a recap, these are all use cases that make use of classification algorithms, right? Again, we built this out, but as of today, that is a SaaS service that is required to make this work, right? You can combine it with for this one. There's 2 options now: Watson or Google TensorFlow, but it is requiring a SaaS service, right? But again, eventually we'll have our own AI classification service inside the AI foundation on-premise as well, right? But again, that's roughly 6 months out, right? So there's a bunch of use cases that we developed for this one. You can see categorization is just one of many. Actually, the inbound email one is the one I like the best, right? Because there's a lot of automation potential. If if a customer organization is still allowing for emails to be sent to the service desk, there's a lot of automation potential here, right? But it goes beyond that, even to custom use cases, right? Again, that's all based on machine learning classification algorithms. What we've done earlier this year is we implemented basically a mechanism to understand similarity of incidents based on natural language analysis and clustering, right? And the 2 use cases where we make use of is this proactive problem management, where we look at a large amount of tickets, let's say 3 months, 6 months, and we try to cluster and see where does the organization spend the most amount of work, right? So we are not just clustering them and tell you how many incidents are in the cluster. We even look at, effort, if you do track it, or at least, a resolution time as an indication of the effort that is, because you may have a cluster that has fewer incidents, but they all take a lot of time, right? And then you may have another cluster with lots of incidents that each take, 5 minutes to resolve, right? So we want to ultimately understand where is the organization spending the most time, and those are the things that should be transitioned to a problem management process, right? So it makes it easy to identify the most valuable problem investigations. And again, you can very easily go from here and transition and create a problem investigation from here. Right? That's the key goal here of this use case. And then the second use case is the one I touched earlier in my presentation. This is more about real-time understanding what is currently coming into the service desk. Are they really about the same thing, these new incidents that come in, and then they're clustered and are represented by these cards, right? And so the use case here is different, right? You're trying to understand what's currently happening. You're trying to kind of create duplicate relationships. That's a big part, right? You can do that in bulk, and then ultimately it helps with the early identification of issues or situations in the environment, right? So here the value is not from identifying the biggest amount of work. The value is from early detection of issues, right? Okay, so again, that is what we've done so far, but we continue to invest in this space, AI technology quite a bit, right? One thing that we jointly look at together with our colleagues from an AIOps perspective is how can we make predictions for major incidents, right? In the end, our goal is not to manage them efficiently, but to even prevent them, or at least to send you an early warning. So we are again looking at leveraging AI technology to detect patterns and then make predictions. Hey, something may happen in an hour or two, right? And then again drive the corresponding workflow then to deal with these predictions, right? Other use cases that we're looking at is we're looking at agent skill profile analysis, right? So we look at the data in the system, right? Who has worked on which type of tickets, and you can automatically create skills profiles of agents, right? It's likely that this person knows a lot about, I don't know, web methods or again, what other technology ever is out there, Kubernetes, container technology, and based on, again, what tickets they had worked on, you can analyze that. And then you can use it for assignment, for finding the right person to collaborate, etc. Right? There's multiple use cases that we want to take advantage of this technology, right? The other part is, and again, the area of AI technology is just extremely rich. There's new algorithms and new type of services available fairly soon. We explore in many areas. I just picked 3 of the active ones that we're currently looking into. Another example here is anonymization of Pii information, right? So finding, even in a free text field, finding sensitive information and anonymizing it, right? Not just in structured fields, but even in free text fields is something that we look at, right? Because again, we hear that over and over again that organizations want to be able to identify sensitive information and anonymize it, protect it from access to other. Now, again, there's other ideas we look at. Auto translation is one that we also, we already have it for chatbot and knowledge to some degree, but we do look at it also for tickets, for example, right? So there'll be more coming in that area. AI is clearly an exciting area where there's a lot of potential for automating activities, and so we definitely want to leverage that, right? Now, yeah, I think eventually, if we, again, once we have this service in our AI foundation, we plan to use it for various use cases. And I think when it comes to, looking at a new ticket and identifying content, we would extend this as well to the work info area.
I saw the phone number.
Yeah, these are structured field, right? In the screenshot here, these are obviously structured information, right? That's easy. That's the easy part, right? The harder part is unstructured text fields like description, work info notes, etc. Right? So that's also what we're looking at. Right? You're right. The screenshot could call that out better, but it's a mock-up, right? As the subtitle says. yeah, we can go back and look at a better mock-up for this. Any other questions? Sorry, I mean, any other UI AI use cases you see? Just interested. Anything where you say, I mean, yeah, yeah. Yeah, crossed it out. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
You're thinking any system.
Any, well,
Like a DoD type environment, they want to like IP addresses and different things. I mean, those are critical to solve issues.
yeah, I mean, you have to figure out, you know, do you kind of anonymize it once and for all, or do you say, okay, only specific users can see it, right? I mean, that's the decision you'll have to take. No, I mean, I was even thinking about, you know, beyond the examples that I showed, and any other use cases you were thinking about from an AI perspective, things that you would like to see in the ITSM solution, right? If not, it's not a problem, right? I just wanted to see whether anybody else is thinking about this topic and has some ideas. And we'll always be open to listen to proposals in that area. So the final topic I wanted to touch on is this area of, again, DevOps and Agile success. And it's a tricky topic to talk about because I think many of us kind of grew up in the service management world with ITIL kind of as a best practice / quasi standard. And I think in many areas, this activity is challenged, right, by DevOps practitioners, right? Of course, there's always this black and white thinking, which usually never really works, right? But it is a fair question, right? How does service management change, right? And how can you support this desire for automation or for quick innovation? How can you support that better, right? And there are, in our perspective, specific challenges that we can help with, right? That are specifically interesting in a larger enterprise or service provider organization, right? I use the term enterprise DevOps here to really say, you know, DevOps in a larger complex organization, right? If you're a startup, there are many things that are easy, right? If you're an enterprise who are doing like 100,000 things in IT, it's much more challenging, right? You have compliance and audits to deal with, right? A startup may not care about that, right? So financial regulations, there's all kinds of things, right? The scale of support is a much harder problem. So we do think that, again, from a service management perspective, there are things that we can provide as value to enable even faster innovation for these large enterprises if they buy into this DevOps idea, right? And we just have to explain again how we can help them be even faster, right? With scaling out support, but in a way that is more kind of aligned with general DevOps practices, right? And again, specifically swarming is a good example. How you can establish a support process without necessarily following this rigid first level, second level, third level approach, right? That often is seen as a negative thing, right? You can do change risk. I mean, change management, again, is always like a big issue for anybody practicing DevOps, right? On the other hand, you know, there is a need to auditability, to have auditability and compliance. So then it's more a question, okay, how can you be super intelligent about which ones you actually have to review and approve and which ones can you just deploy automatically, right? And there's, again, ideas how to handle that. So there's a lot of value that a service management solution can provide, and we are delivering this as part of our roadmap, right? We think a lot about how we can articulate that. That is a challenge. And then again, what do you need to build out to enable that, right? By the way, you know, whenever you talk to DevOps practitioners, right, APIs is like the basis for everything, right? Everything has, and same with SRE engineers, right? You have to be able to access everything with API, and that's one of the reasons why we've updated recently our REST API. What we're basically doing here is we are adding a simplified REST API layer on top of the lower level form-based one. So that should allow to interact with things like incidents, problem investigation, change requests, etc., in a kind of a first-class REST API, not through the forms API, right? So that again should make it a lot easier for everybody to build integrations into ITSM. We've done the first version of that in 21.3, but we're still building this out further, right? But you would basically have a lower level form-based REST API and then a higher level one that is easier to use for the most common ITSM objects. Right? That's something that we look at. Today we partner with a company called Digital AI around this change risk prediction, but it is something that we continue to look at, right? Because we know that's important for agility, right? To know when can you let things go and when do you need to pull the brakes and kind of do the review and approval, right? Again, today it's often a black and white. Oh, I want to never do any approvals, or everything has to go through a CAP meeting, right? Except for maybe some standard changes, right? In the future, I think this has to be much more surgical, right? And that's the part that we're working on.
So you doing anything to collect actual requirements related to like changes and stuff that way? Because it seems like that would give you some of that predictive analysis if we're changing a bunch of functionality.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple things we typically look at, and the same here with, again, this partner solution, right? You can look, for example, you can look at the track record of a team if they do daily deployments, right? And if you do daily deployments, they tend to be small changes. And if they have a stable system, they deploy daily, the system doesn't go down. Why do you want to hold them up, right? Let them just continue to deploy. If they have a track record of stability in the environment, you know, they should be honored.
Like changing the field label or something like that versus changing the
bigger architecture changes. Yeah.
The scope of the change, you know, capture some of those.
Yeah, so we're
items that maybe captured in the release, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, this is everything developed and bundled into the capabilities of what it might.
So some of that may come through the kind of question approach, but again, the idea is that we would pull data from multiple sources, whether it's kind of a human assessment of these changes, whether it's the historic track record of a development team when they make deployments, other sources, right? Does it fall under regulation, for example? That is a reason to stop and say, hey, we gotta. So the idea is that we would look at lots of information and then make an intelligent decision when to trigger an official review and approval process, right? And when to just let it go. That's the idea behind it. Again, today we work to some degree with a partner company here. Again, that solution is available from BMC, but it is a partner-built SaaS service. Very interesting solution, right? But we are continuing to look into that topic as well from our side. Right? And then what is also obviously interesting from a DevOps perspective is, you know, being able to automate between development tools and ITSM systems, right? So DevOps is one of the use cases we cover with our Helix iPaaS and multi-cloud broker solution is looking at integrating tools like Jira or Azure DevOps and others, you know, and basically bringing information into the ITSM system, right? So you can automatically create change requests. Nobody has to manually log that anymore. You can also go the other direction if you get a service desk ticket incident. And it turns out it's a defect in the software. You know, you want to create a bug on the Jira side, right? As an example.
I think that's kind of where I was going. You know, if you're listing a bunch of bugs and they're high impact bugs or something along those lines, it seems like if you got that information, risk of change.
That's another one, right? Exactly right. So, so again, that's a key one. I mean, this is a piece that we built out over the past, I would say, 2 years. On that side, we recently added MuleSoft as an underlying iPaaS solution. So we do support that in case somebody wants to build this on-premise. We used to only do Jitterbit and that is only available as a SaaS solution, but there is an on-prem version of this available using MuleSoft. And then we are building out connectors, right? So both MuleSoft and Jitterbit have a rich set of third-party connectors. But IT is not necessarily their main domain area, and so on the IT side, we felt like we have to build out a few connectors as well from a deep BMC perspective, right? You have all the business apps integrated, of course, and there are some IT apps, but we wanted to add some more, and that's like a content play that we have, right? Yeah, so again, that kind of summarizes again what we've done here from a capabilities perspective in these 4 areas, right? Again, the platform, modernization, and convergence, user experience, AI, and enabling Devops and Agile success. Again, we are super happy that we continue to be seen as a leader just in the recent Magic Quadrant for ITSM. Again, it's 8 years in a row, specifically also in areas that are more cutting edge, right, around Agile and DevOps and AI ITSM. We continue to be the leading solution, specifically when it comes to advanced capabilities, right? With that, if you do have a few more minutes, I can answer some questions, but otherwise, thanks for your interest in.
I'm going to go ahead and shut off the recording, but you can still ask questions if you want, because we're here.